Hello everyone, I'm Li Xiuhan. I come from Hong Kong.
Hello everyone, my name is Lu Fang. I'm come from China.
My name is Liang Liqi. English name is Kelly. I come from China.
In this video, our group is going to discuss our focus SDG, no poverty. And my group members, Liang Liqi and Lu Fang, are going to discuss the case how China has eliminated poverty and things we have learned in this case study. The main SDG we are going to talk about in this assignment is goal number 1, no poverty. Nowadays, even though lots of countries are striving for economic growth, most people in the world have not benefited in terms of living standard. The World Bank, which is part of the UN, is the main source for global information on extreme poverty, and it sets the international poverty line. A person is considered to be in extreme poverty if they live on less than $1.9 per day. According to the UN, more than 7 million people, or 10% of the global population, still live in extreme poverty, which means they are surviving on less than $1.9 a day. Experts predict this figure will continue to rise as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, alongside the ongoing impact of conflicts and climate change. The number of people in extreme poverty are mainly scattered in developing countries in South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, East Asia, and Pacific. Global poverty is one of the very worst problems that the world faces today. The poorest in the world are often hungry, have much less access to education, regularly have no light at night, and suffer from much poor health. To make progress against poverty is therefore one of the most urgent global goals. In fact, people living in poverty do not only exist in developing countries. Gini coefficient is one of the most frequently used measures of economic inequality. The high Gini coefficient reveals the gap between the rich and the poor, and this phenomenon persists in both developed and developing countries. In most of the countries in the world, the rich are enjoying superior quality of living, while the poor are surviving with poor living standard. Inequality within most advanced and emerging markets has increased, a phenomenon that has received considerable attention. The former President of the United States, Obama, called widening income inequality the defining challenge of our time. The inequality is believed as one of the reasons why Squid Game of Netflix is successful, as it reflects the ugly truth that a large number of people living in poverty, even in developed countries like Korea. Why poverty matters to the sustainability of the world. With great power comes great responsibility. This is a proverb popularized by Spider-Man comic books written by Stan Lee. Applying this proverb to the poverty problem, it is always ethical for the rich ones to help the poor to get rid of poverty. Besides the ethical reasons, poverty is a problem that affects us all. The mass population living in poverty has caused a lot of social problems, such as crime, access and affordability of healthcare, race relations, and worker productivity. The general public winds up paying a heavy price for allowing poverty to walk in our midst. Take the COVID-19 as an example. If the developed countries do not help the developing countries in vaccination, the developing countries would be persistently affected by pandemic and become the breeding ground of variant virus. The rapid mutation of coronavirus would eventually be transmitted to the developed countries. All the countries would pay a price for not helping the poor countries to combat COVID-19. Besides helping the poor people living in developing countries, we should also pay attention to people living in poverty in developed countries. Nowadays, equality, like fairness, is an important value in most society. On the contrast, inequality is a signal of lack of income mobility and opportunity. When the wealth is concentrated on a small group of people, there will be persistent disadvantage for particular segments of the society. Large population of people living in poverty would eventually lead to resistance to the existing economic and political system. Different forms of resistance, like riots and strikes, would definitely cause suboptimal use of human resources, reduction in investment, political and economic instability, and raise crisis risks.
Now let me introduce China's experience in eliminating inequality and poverty. Poverty alleviation in China has always been a main goal for the PRC government. In the initial period of reform and opening up, the Central Collective Leadership headed by Deng Xiaoping issued a declaration that poverty is not socialism. Socialism means eliminating poverty. As can be seen in the charts prepared by Statista, China used to have half of the population living below the poverty line in 2000. However, with the continuing efforts of the Chinese government, its complete eradication of extreme poverty, which is the first target of the UN 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development, the 0% of poverty in China is 10 years ahead of schedule, which has made an important contribution to the cause of global poverty alleviation. The success of China eliminating poverty can be explained by its enforcement of two development strategies. In 1988, Deng Xiaoping proposed that the coastal areas, which comprise a vast region with a population of 200 million, should accelerate their opening to the outside world, and we should help them develop rapidly first. Afterwards, they can promote the development of the interior. When the coastal area have developed to a certain extent, they will be required to give more help to the interior. However, when the coastal area have been developing rapidly, on the other hand, the inequality between coastal area and the interior has been widening. To eliminate poverty besides development plans, the Chinese government plays a very important role in the redistribution of welfare. A whole range of efforts were directed to business development, the training and transfer of rural labor, poverty alleviation through relocation and relocation for the development of the economy. State strategy of regional development was implemented, such as developing West China, revitalizing old industrial bases in the northeast and stimulating the rest of central region. All these measures can be explained by the second distribution system, which emphasizes the role of government in distributing national wealth to the society in a fair way through tax system and political process. Other than second distribution system, nowadays in China, the government has begun to advocate common prosperity through the third distribution. Third distribution refers to creating opportunity for high-income groups and enterprises so they can give back to society, including through voluntary gifts and charitable donations. For example, giant technology companies are encouraged to donate billions of dollars to deal with poverty alleviation in China. The advocacy of third distribution has raised the awareness of society's responsibility to eliminate poverty.
In the case of how China is eliminating poverty and advocating third distribution, we have learned that attaining SDG number 1, no poverty, is not only the responsibility of government. Everyone in the society can play a role in helping to poor. For enterprise, they should try to establish sustainable development goals like reducing poverty, but not just be profit-oriented. To contribute to the poverty reduction, enterprise can regularly take part in the charity activities to show care to the poor people in the society. In Singapore, charity organizations like Beyond always look for donors, volunteers, and partners for charity campaigns. Promoting participation in the voluntary work and organizing donations together with the charity groups would be a good option for enterprise to help the world to reduce poverty. Besides, participating in fair trade is another option for enterprise to contribute to reduce poverty in developing countries. Nowadays, lots of international enterprises like Starbucks are practicing the fair trade principle in order to change the way trade works through better price. Decent working conditions and a fairer deal for farmers and workers in developing countries. The better price for developing countries would definitely help them to reduce the population in poverty. For individuals, For every single capable individual, it is also possible to participate in the global work for poverty reduction. Charity organizations like World Vision and Save the Children have been doing charity jobs for funding poor families in developing countries. What other charity organizations need are regular donation and volunteer to carry out their charity activities. Everyone in the world who are relatively wealthier can be one of the donators as they accept any amount of donations. Even small donations can help the poor families to change their living conditions. Besides monetary aid, everyone can contribute to the global poverty reduction through supporting sustainable products, which are traded by the fair trade principle. Parents can also educate their children to be generous and respect the poor people in the society by participating voluntarily and charity activity together with their children. Education is very important as part of the global work on poverty reduction since the sustainable development goals are not just for our generation, but for any generations after us. Only when the governments, enterprise, and individual work together toward poverty reduction can we have a sustainable and better future for our planet.
Thank you for watching.